Hi there and welcome to Tech Life, a channel where I aim to review everything from selfie sticks to laptops to IDs for coding, video editing, software for producing thumbnails, essentially anything tech related. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you have anything that you think I should review, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to review that product. Welcome to part 8 of this C# beginners tutorial series. In this video, we're going to look at branching in C#. Branching is the act of controlling which line of code should be executed next. Branching allows us to jump to different parts of the code. The line in code to jump to is controlled by a conditional statement. This conditional statement is based on a comparison between a test value and one or more possible values using Boolean logic. We will look at 3 branching techniques available in C#. We'll be looking at the if statement, then we'll look at the switch statement, and then we'll look at the ternary operator. The if statement allows us to test for a condition, and depending on the result of that test, we decide which part of our code to run. We can use the if statement in a number of different ways, either by itself or by using it in conjunction with the keyword else. The syntax for a simple if statement looks like this. So here we have the keyword if, and then we have a condition that we test for. Depending on what the result of this condition is, then we decide whether this block of code is run. A simple flowchart of a if condition looks like this. So we'll start off our code here, we'll set a condition, and then we'll test for that condition. So that's where we do this if statement. So if that condition is true, then we'll perform some actions. We'll run part of our code, which might do various different things, and then end that particular part of the code. If, however, the condition is false, then this part of the code will not get run, and instead the flow of the program control will simply end the program. As mentioned before, we can also use the keyword else in conjunction with the if statement. So when we do use if else, then if the condition we are testing for is false, then the else part of the code will run. So if I show you a quick flowchart of an if else, a typical if else statement. So right at the top here, we'll start our code. Next, we set the condition, and then we test our condition. So if the condition is true, then the if part of the code is run. So it will come across here where it says yes, and it will run some code, it will do something. If, however, this condition is false, then the else part of the code will run, and then once that is run, then the program will terminate. So a typical if-else statement may well look like this in C#. So here we are testing the condition of this integer I, and we're saying is I equal to 0. So if I does equal to 0, then the if part of the code will run. So this console.writeLine I is 0 will run. If, however, this condition turns out to be false, i.e. I is not equal to 0, then only the else part of the code will run, and so the console.writeLine I is non-zero will be run. C# also allows us to specify a new condition in an if statement. So if the first condition of the statement is false, we can use the keywords else if to specify another a second condition, or even a third or fourth. So let me just bring up this document. So here we have an if statement, and we are evaluating condition 1. If condition 1 is true, then this block of code will run, where it says the block of code to be executed if condition 1 is true. However, if condition 1 is false, then using the else if, we can specify another condition and then evaluate that condition. So essentially what we're doing here is we're actually nesting if statements. So we've got an if statement here at the top, and then we nest another if statement within that if statement. We can continue doing this, so we could have numerous else if statements. And so for this second condition, if this is true, then the block of code will be run, and if it's false, then we'll drop down to the else part of the code, and then that will get run. There's a cleaner way of doing this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's called a switch statement, but this is an else if statement within C#. Let's just have a quick look at a typical flowchart for an else if statement. So we start the code right at the top with the start statement. Next we actually set the condition, and then we do the first comparison of the condition. If that comparison is true, then the if part of the code will run. If however it's false, then we can test the condition again and determine whether that's true or false. Again, if it's true, then the else if part of the code will be run. If it's false, then we can drop down into the else part of the code, and that will then get run, and eventually the program will terminate. There is also a shorthand version of the if-else statement. This is known as the ternary operator because it consists of 3 operands. It can be used to replace multiple lines of code with a single line of code, and it's often used to replace a simple if-else statement. Let's just have a quick look at the syntax. So this is the ternary operator. I set a condition, and then we evaluate that condition to obtain a Boolean value, and if that Boolean value returns true, then statement 1 is executed, else statement 2 is executed. So this is a shorthand version of the if-else statement. And next up, we are going to have a quick look at the switch statement. The switch statement is often used instead of nested if statements. So if we have a piece of code that has lots of nested ifs, it's far better to use a switch statement. Switch statements are more efficient than groups of nested if statements, and also your code will be easy to read if you use a switch as opposed to lots of nested ifs. Let's have a quick look at the syntax of a switch statement. So this is a switch statement in C#. The first thing we notice is the keyword switch. There are a couple of other keywords. One of those is called case, another one is break, and the third one here is default. We'll discuss those in a second. So in order to define a switch statement, we do use the keyword switch. And here we can see that we have a variable called integer a, and we would have set the value of integer a before we got to this switch statement. In the switch statement, the expression is evaluated once, and then once that expression has been evaluated, then it's compared to the case parentheses contained within the switch statement. So for instance, if the value of the variable integer a was 1, then once it's been evaluated, we would compare it to a case 1, and this would be true. Therefore, the console.writeLine integer a equals 1 would be executed, and then directly after this line has been executed, then this break command would be executed. The break command breaks us out of the actual switch statements. Therefore, case 2, case 3, and default would not be run. On the other hand, if the variable integer a value was not 1, 2, or 3, then the default part of the switch statement would be run. So the console.writeLine integer a is not 1, 2, or 3 would be executed, and then the break command would be executed to break us out of this switch statement. There are a couple of things to remember when using switch statements. The case values must be constant, so this value cannot vary, and we have to use this break keyword. If we forget to use the break keyword, then the compiler is going to throw an error. There are exceptions to using the break keyword, in that if there's no code contained within this block of code, for instance, if case 1 did not contain any code, then you could have case 1 without a break, and case 2 would then follow on. Again, if case 2 contained code, then you would have to use the break keyword. Okay, so we've looked at if, we've looked at if else, and we've also looked at else if, ternary, and switch. We are going to fire up Visual Studio, and we'll code up some of these examples. Okay, so let's fire up Visual Studio and create a new project. So we can create a new project by clicking this new project, or we can go to File, Create New Project. We're just going to click a new project here. And we're going to call this project, it's going to be a console application, and we are going to call this, I'm just going to call it branching, to be honest. Branching. Click OK there. Visual Studio will go away and put a skeleton application together for us. Right click on the project name and add, and we're going to add a new item. It's going to be a class, and we're going to call this, let's just call it branching again. Cool. So namespace is branching, class is branching. We're going to obviously create our main method in here. So it starts off with the keyword static, another keyword called void, because there's no return value, capital M for main, open and close parentheses, and we're going to say string, square brackets, args. Okay, and we're going to place our if statement within this portion of the code. I'm going to put in just a comment first. This is going to be the if statement, and two forward slashes in C# means that it's a comment. In order to create an if statement, we use the keyword if. Just before that, we're going to create two variables. They are going to be of type int, and I'm just I'm just going to call them x and y. So integer x is equal to the value 20, and integer y is going to be equal to the value 18. So if open and close parenthesis, I'm going to say if x is greater than y, then do something. So this is our if statement, and we're saying evaluate the value of x and y, determine whether x is greater than y, and if it is, then run whatever code sits within these braces. And I'm just going to put a statement out to the console. So we're going to use the keyword console, right line, open and close parentheses, open and close inverted commas, and we're just going to say something simple like x is greater than y. And we end that line with a semicolon, and we're also going to put in a console.read line. Otherwise, the program runs really quickly and the console window opens and closes. We won't be able to see the output. So it's going to be console.readline, and that's with an open and close parenthesis, and again a semicolon. And we're just going to leave it at that. So that's a very simple if statement. Let's hit F5 to compile, build, and run. And we get the output x is greater than y. X is 20, y is 18, and obviously 20 is greater than the value 18. So that's the if statement. Let's delete all of this because I want to show you the if else statement. So I'll just get rid of all of this, and we'll change this to else. And for this statement, we're going to use, we'll just have the one integer. So it's an int, and the variable name is temp. We're going to assign, again, we're going to assign the value 20 to this. And we're going to create an if statement. And the condition here is, we're saying is temp less than 15. So if this condition is true, if temp is less than 15, then do everything that appears within these curly braces. And again, I'm just going to do a console.writeLine to put something out to the console. And what can we type here? Okay, we can say something like turn on the heating. We're saying if temp is less than 15, it's quite cold, so we want the heating to be turned on. Turn on the heating. And we can finish off this line by using a semicolon at the end. And here we type in the keyword else. And again, we can have a set of opening and closing braces. And here we'll put out to the console, console.writeLine, turn off the heating. Okay, let's have a quick look at this before we run it. We've created a variable. It's called temp. It's of type int. We've assigned the value 20 to it. We've created an if statement, and we've said compare the value of temp with the value 15. And if this condition evaluates to true, then run whatever code sits within these open and close braces. If, however, this condition evaluates to false, then run whatever code sits within these two braces of the else part of this statement. Okay, I don't see any squiggly lines, so that means the code is good. Let's hit the F5 button and see what the output is. Okay, the console did pop up really quickly and it disappeared because we've not included the read line. So console dot read line, I'll put that there, copy, and we can put it here as well. Let's try that again. Okay, so the output is turn off the heating. Turn off the heating. So temp, which is the variable temp contains the value 20. It's obviously not less than 15. Therefore, the else part of this statement is executed. So we come down to this part of the code and we output turn off the heating. Let's move on to the else if statement. So I'll get rid of that just to make things all clear. So the actual statement is if else if. So it's a nested if. And again, we are going to have, initially we're going to have one integer. And again, that integer is called temp, and this time we'll give it a value of 22. And we're going to start our if statement with the keyword if, open and close parentheses. If temp is less than 10, then do whatever is in these braces. Console dot write line, open and close parentheses, open and close, inverted commas, turn on the heating because 10 is obviously very cold. So we're going to type in turn on the heating. Let's put an exclamation mark because it's quite urgent that we get warm really quickly. And then I'm going to put in a console.read line this time so we can actually see the output before it disappears. Console.read, open and close parentheses, and a semicolon. Let's clean this up slightly. And here we're going to place the keywords else if. So this is the nested if. And open and close the braces. So we're going to say else if temp is less than 20, then do something. And whatever it's going to do, it will be contained within this set of braces. and I'm just going to copy this because we're just going to output to the console again. So if it's less than 20, and turn the heating down. Let's say you turn the heating down. Turn the heating down. And lastly, we're going to have the else. If I spell it correctly, it will work. Copy this, paste it to here, Control C for copy, Control V for paste. And I'm going to say turn the heating off. Does that make sense? Let's have a quick review of what we've just done. So we've created a variable. We've called it temp. It's of type integer, and we've assigned the value 22. We've created an if statement. For the condition we've said is temp less than 10. If temp is less than 10, then do all of this code here. If that condition equates to false, then drop down to the else if. In this else if, we're saying is temp less than 20. If it is, then do all of this code here. Otherwise, undo this code. Okay, let's see this in action. F5 to run. And turn the heating off. Okay, so it's printed out turn the heating off because temp is 22. Is temp less than 10? No, it's not, because 22 is greater than 10. So the if statement does not get executed. It comes to here. Is 22 less than 20? No, 22 is still greater than 20. So this condition is false. And the only remaining condition that can be executed is the else. And in that case, we're printing out the statement, turn the heating off. So that's a very simple if-else if statement. The best way to get comfortable and familiar with this type of coding is to type it in and play around with it, change things around, change these values, change the comparisons, and see what it does. Let's move on to the ternary statement. And for that, I'm not going to need any of this stuff apart from the integers, so let's get rid of this. So we've still got a variable. It's called temp. It's of type integer, and I'm going to change the value. That we're going to make it 12, and we're going to create another variable, and it's of type string. It's a type string, and I'm going to call this variable result. So that's two variables. One is an integer, one is a string. We're going to assign a value to the string by saying result equals open and close parentheses temp less than 18. And for the ternary operator, we use this question mark. And I'm going to, within these inverted commas, I'm going to place a string. So I'm going to say turn on heating. So after the string, we place a colon, and then we can place another string. And for this, I'm going to say turn off heating. Heating. And a semicolon at the end of that line. So let me explain what we're doing here. We've created two variables. One is of type integer, and we've assigned the value 12 to it. The second one is of type string, and we haven't assigned a value yet, but we've given it a name, result. Okay. So the ternary operator has a condition, and the condition is compare the values of temp with the value of 18. So compare the value of temp against the number 18. So it's saying, is temp greater than 18? If temp is greater than 18, then it's gonna save turn on heating to this variable, which is of type string, and obviously turn off heating is a string. So we can save the string value to result. If temp is not greater than 18, it's gonna save this part of the statement to this variable result. So temp is 12. So 12 is not greater than 18. So we envisage turn off heating to be saved into this string variable result. And in order to view what's saved in result, we can do a simple console.writeLine. Console writeLine, and we just pass in the name of the variable, which is result. And we'll also use a console.readLine so we can see the actual output before it disappears. Okay, F5 to run. So the output is turn off heating. Temp is 12. Temp is not greater than 18, so it's stored the value turn off heating to result, and then we printed out result. Don't worry too much about whether the temperatures are low or high and whether you should be turning on heating or what I'm trying to do in these tutorials is just to show you the actual different commands that we use, and in this case we're looking at the ternary statement. So just concentrate on the fact that in order to set up a ternary operator, we have a condition, so that's operand 1, and then we have a string, which is operand 2, and then we have the second string, which is the operand 3. And these don't have to be strings. Bear that in mind. Okay, let's swap this around, and we're going to say is temp less than 18. Sorry, 18. And so now it's going to come to this condition. It's going to look at temp, which is 12. It's C# is going to compare these two and say, well, 12 is actually less than 18. So the statement is true. And so we're going to store turn on heating into this string variable. And then we're going to output the string to the console as we did before. And now we have turn on heating as expected. Cool. So that is the ternary operator. As I say, it's the shorthand version of the if-else statement in C#. And next we'll look at the switch statement. So we can get rid of all of this. We can change this. I'll change this to switch statement. And for this switch statement, we're going to initially have an integer, a variable called day. It's of type int, and we're going to set this to 4. In order to create a switch statement, we use a keyword switch. Open and close parentheses, and we place the variable name within those braces, and then we have the open and close curly braces. And then we use another keyword, and that keyword is case. Case, and then colons, and then we can place code within this case console. Dot write line Monday. Semicolon, and the keyword break. It's very important to remember to put the break keyword in. And I'm going to repeat this for the days of the week. I'm not necessarily going to type it all out. So again, it's case, and then the number 2, and then a colon. And I'm going to copy and paste this for this second case. And this is going to be Tuesday. Once I've typed this all out, I'll explain what we are doing. And now I'm just going to copy and paste this case. So Control C to copy, Control V to paste, change this to a 3, change that to a Wednesday. And repeat the process again, change that to a 4, change this to Thursday. Let's spell Tuesday correctly first. So this is Thursday now, not Tuesday. Thursday. Control V again. Day 5 is a Friday. Friday. Day 6 will be a Saturday. And lastly, day 7 is going to be a Sunday. Cool. Let's clean this up a little bit. So let's see what we've done. We created a variable. It's of type integer, and we've set the value 4. Then we've created a switch statement, and we passed in the variable, the integer variable 4. So the switch statement will take this variable, it will come to the first case, and it'll say, is the value of the day variable equal to 1? If it is, then run this piece of code and then break out of the switch statement. If day is not 1, then compare it to the second case. Is day equal to 2? Again, the same scenario. If it's true, then do the block of code within this case statement and then break out. If not, then go to the next, and it iterates all the way down. And that doesn't iterate, but it flows all the way down this switch statement until it finds the correct case. So we've set our variable to equal 4. So I'm expecting the word Thursday to be printed onto our console. And I'm going to put, let's put in console.write line here somewhere. Sorry, a read line, so we can actually see the output before it disappears. Let's see if it works here. Control F5. And the word Thursday is printed because the value of day was 4, and as it came to this part of the code, it looked and compared it to this case value of 4, and then it printed that. And then if you close that, the program will terminate. Let's play around with this for a second or two. If I change this to 7, we should see the word Sunday printed. And so that's Sunday. Okay. And let's see if we change this value to 8. Let's see what happens now. And nothing seems to happen. Nothing gets printed, which is not very good. Can we fix that? And the answer is yes, we can. What we can do is, if we scroll down slightly, this very last case, we can add a little bit more code to this and say if we can use the keyword default. Let's put this back in line. So I'm going to put default, and I'm going to copy and paste some of this. And because there's no more days after day 7, let's put something here. Sorry, you're out of days. Let's see what happens now. So the variable day is still set to 8, and we've only got cases 1 to 7. And now if I hit F5, oops, Okay, sorry, you're out of days. And so we have the ability to have a default value within our case statement, which can be really helpful when users input the wrong or unexpected values. Okay, so I'm going to end this video on branching here. A quick recap on what we looked at. We looked at the if statement first, and then we looked at the if-else statements. We followed this up by looking at the nested if statements using the else if, and then we looked at the shorthand version of the if-else statement, commonly known as the ternary statement. Finally, we looked at the switch statements. I hope you found this short video informative. If so, please do hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing so you don't miss the next part in this series on C#. Hopefully see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much.